Hey, what's happening, everyone? It is I, the man, the myth, the mustache, Tim here, and I've got a brand new video for you. Welcome to part 4 of What If Midoriya Was an All-for-One Fan. Stay strapped into your torture chairs because you're in for a sweet and sour treat. With that out of the way, let's get this story going, shall we? Midoriya eyed the other students attempting to enter UA, his competition. It'd be a lie if he saw them as anything more than pebbles, but his master had taught him never to underestimate your enemy, no matter how weak they appear. All it'd take is one well-placed trump card, and Midoriya would be at a disadvantage. While no students here knew Midoriya's powerful telekinetic quirk had a massive glaring flaw, if another individual held Midoriya in any form, his quirk instantly became nullified. He trained hard over the weeks, building up to this, trying to beat that flaw, that imperfection. But once more, as the villainous beacon of hope All for One was to Midoriya, he parted some wisdom to him after bringing Monoma, now named Pentagonist in the villain world, and Kamakiri, who had taken the villain mantle of slaying Mantis. Flashback! Midoriya knelt before All for One in person, trembling from excitement slightly, but now wasn't the time for an autograph. Meanwhile, the man Midoriya had grown to know as Dr. Ujiko was tinkering with his support gear, adding some new features to the claw pack, as he dubbed it. Midoriya had to admit if he kept things up, maybe he should request some tutoring from Ujiko in the various scientific fields to remain on top of his grades in class.
You look like you've seen better days, Tactic Hill. Don't tell me you can't handle the training Vlad King and Power Loader are putting you through. I joke, of course. Kurogiri has been watching your training for myself and Tamura. We've noted you trying to restlessly beat your quirk's flaw, but you shouldn't train to beat what you can't remove. Every quirk has a weakness if you know where to look. Even mine and All Might's quirks have flaws, but I've stolen enough quirks to cover my weaknesses. So instead of seeking to purge yourself of the weakness entirely, only to face failure after failure, seek to find something that can cover your weakness. Thus, why the good doctor is upgrading your claw pack.
All for One smiled at Midoriya, almost like the father he wanted to have instead of that bastard that had turned his back on him and his mother after his quote-unquote episode all those years ago. Midoriya's rage bubbled just thinking of his father and how he would rather die than stay under the same roof as a monster like Midoriya or the mother who dared bring him into this world. Although Midoriya was proud that when his father married his mother, they agreed to take Inko's name of Midoriya instead of Hisashi's name, which was Rokata. End of flashback. Midoriya watched as the hero Present Mike was flanked by the underground hero Eraserhead, standing near the podium. Great. Just great. Of all the heroes, it had to be Eraserhead. Of all heroes, Midoriya knew Eraserhead. He was one of the rare heroes that Midoriya respected as much as he loathed him. Eraserhead was there to help oversee Midoriya's psychiatric visits, as the psychiatrist wanted to build trust or some crap. So Midoriya was allowed to be relieved of his quirk-canceling bracelets, but Eraserhead was always there to stop him if he used his quirk too much during sessions or attempted to try anything. Midoriya listened closely as President Mike explained the written portion of the exam and announced for them to begin. Too easy. Midoriya began to work through the paper faster than most, not just thanks to his next to zealous amount of studying he did, or his IQ, but thanks to his claw pack and Masked Helm's 180-degree vision. Both claws held their own pencils to answer questions from Midoriya as he used his dominant hand to write with another. Mike spotted this and leaned towards Aizawa and managed to whisper, surprisingly, "Is he allowed to do that? I mean, it doesn't seem particularly fair." Aizawa just shrugged in response as he also eyed Midoriya, answering in such an unusual manner before turning his sight to another student wearing a scarf similar to his own. Tired baggy eyes and equally unkempt hair, the only difference being hair color, with Aizawa's being black and the student's being a dark purple. Soon enough, Aizawa whispered a reply to his colleague. "Since when has anything been fair at UA? Besides, he isn't cheating off anyone, and it isn't against the rule to use your quirk or support gear to work on your own test. Even if this is the first time seeing someone use their support gear. Aizawa sighed, looking back at Mike before returning his withering gaze to the rows of students, but was soon face to face with a completed paper being offered by Midoriya. Aizawa read it over 3 times, making sure he got this right before handing it to Mike, who read it for himself before looking dumbfounded and putting it into a machine, mouthing to Aizawa, "How the hell?" Soon, everyone handed in their tests, complete or not once time ran out. The 2 teachers stepped aside from the podium as a small mouse bear creature entered the room, Nezu, someone whom Midoriya had to admit he envied in terms of his wits and intellect, along with his slightly sadistic personality towards humans. Jumping up on Aizawa's shoulder, then the principal spoke softly into a microphone. He gave some boring speech about seeing many worthy heroes in the making, and to go beyond plus whatever, but then took a swig of tea from a cup he had brought with him. He then said something that caught Midoriya off guard immensely.
Well then, with all that done, I'd first like to congratulate both Momo Yakirozu and Izuku Midoriya for scoring 100% on the written exam. Now, one small announcement for Izuku Midoriya. Due to your quirk, I'd like to offer you the option to enter a city joined by the top 10 scoring people in the written portion. Them being Momo Yakirozu, Katsuki Bakugo, Togaro Kamakiri, Itsuka Kendo, Shoto Todoroki, Minoru Mineta, Tenya Ida, Suyu Asui, Naito Monoma, and yourself. There will be slightly less robots in order to keep things fair for other examinees. Do you accept?
Midoriya looked at each of the people mentioned who had been asked to take a stand, so Midoriya could see them before nodding in agreement. The explanation of the practical went on without incident. Well, until Tenya Ida spoke up, again gesturing at the board and chopping his hand. "Sir, the board clearly shows 4 robots. You have only explained 3. If there is a mistake, it should be rectified immediately. I find it highly ill-fitting of such a prestigious school." Midoriya and Aizawa simultaneously let out an exacerbated sigh as Aizawa started to activate his quirk to deal with the interruption. His thunder was stolen by a metal claw shooting past Ida's head and grasping a piece of paper in its 5-clawed metal fingers from his desk, then lifting it in front of him.
"I didn't expect a relative of Ingenium to be so foolish. If you were to wait patiently for the good principal to finish, he'd have talked about the 0-pointer and would all be getting ready for our practical exam by now. But if you were to use your eyes, you'd notice this handout elaborating all 4 robots, which includes the 0-pointer. So if you had done either, you wouldn't have needed to interrupt our teachers, annoy most everyone here, and generally waste our time. I didn't give you the opportunity to shine in that special city made just for us in the top 10 for you to squander it. I apologize for the sudden outburst, Principal Nezu, sir. Please forgive me."
Slowly, Ida sat down, nodding in quiet disbelief and embarrassment. The 3 faculty members were also a bit shocked, looking at the claw retract easily into Midoriya's pack as he bowed, asking for forgiveness. Quickly, Nezu wrapped everything up, explaining the 0-pointer in his own special way, which left many people either fearing it or eager to see what kind of big surprise it was, even if it wasn't worth anything and just an obstacle. During the brief bus ride to their mock city, the top 10 sat silently eyeing each other nervously, or distastefully in some cases. Midoriya broke the silence by stating the obvious. They'd all get nowhere fast if they ran like headless chickens throughout the gate. They need to team up if they want to come out on top. Unbelievably, Bakugo actually agreed with the nerd's plan, even though he couldn't believe it himself. Soon, they were exchanging quirk information, and in Midoriya's case, support gear info too. Well, most of it anyway. They didn't need to know about Ujiko's new upgrade. It was his personal trump card if things got hairy. Then came strategies, attack patterns, grouping up in twos, and splitting off before all converging to the mock city's center. Unbeknownst to Midoriya, he had more than one audience watching. Sure, he knew the heroes were watching, but one of his helmet's eyes had a built-in camera, and it was currently transmitting a heavily encrypted and nearly undetectable signal to the League, allowing all for one, Shigaraki, Dr. Ujiko, and Kurogiri to watch Midoriya in action. This video is brought to you by Skillshare. With the services Skillshare provides, you can get access to many in-depth tutorial videos on basically anything you want to learn. Each class that they have is bound to help you with your own creative endeavors. Do you want to learn how to make videos like this one? Do you want to learn how to write scripts or edit audio? Skillshare has you covered. And with our link, you can have a 14-day free trial. So what are you waiting for? Click the link now and get 14 days worth of classes free. Link in the description below.
Remember the plan, guys? Cool. Remember, no countdowns in a real battle. So when you see that gate, move to get past it however you can, pair up, and get to work. Everyone remembers their pair, right? Okay, good. Good. Let's crush this test.
With that, the gate moved slightly, hissing as the seal was opened. The 10 students charged at the gate. Midoriya used his telekinesis on himself to fly over it and land, using his claws to break his fall. Ida and Todoroki charged up an ice ramp over the gate, landing on a rooftop. Mineta used a sticky ball to bounce his way over the gate, using a second ball to break his fall, copying Midoriya's lead. Monoma followed Kamakiri as they both used the same quirk to slice a hole through the opening gate and ran through it. Bakugo launched himself onto a roof using explosions, joined by Asui not far behind him, who simply jumped. Yaoyorozu had created herself some roller skates prior to the gate opening and put them on, using them to dash in at a faster speed through the hole Monoma and Kamakiri had made, followed by a sprinting Kendo. Getting into the pairs the group had planned on previously, they all dispersed and got to work. Bakugo was stuck with Kamakiri, although the two objected to this idea. Midoriya managed to sway them by making a bet between them. Using their rivalry to bring out the best in them was way too easy. Mineta and Asui were paired together, something that made Asui a bit uneasy. But when Midoriya explained she'd be helping get from roof to roof so they could both attack the bots from above, she gave in too. Kendo was paired with Monoma, which got no arguments, as the two knew each other well enough and knew each other's fighting styles to a T. Next was Todoroki and Ida. This too was a no-brainer and got no resistance after Midoriya explained the plan to use Todoroki's ice to improve their mobility tenfold, leaving any bots they fought as sitting ducks. Which finally left Midoriya and Yaoyorozu, who would be able to make anything for Midoriya to use as projectiles with his telekinesis, whilst Midoriya gave the opportunity for the duo to use the rooftops when needed. This was truly a plan worthy of Tactikill. The heroes and League watched amazed by the plan of action and teamwork put together so quickly and perfectly. With the heroes in a room watching every feed carefully, their attention couldn't help but always be drawn to the monitor marked Top 10. Nezu sat drinking his tea, watching it, fascinated by the duos put together that complemented each other for this particular combat scenario, despite some of them having very contrasting personalities, petty rivalries, or being total strangers. He wondered if Midoriya was anything like his mother and would like to engage in a game of chess. But then he had a horrible memory of a bet he lost and thought to himself, a quick perhaps not. The other heroes in the room with Nezu were Eraserhead, Present Mike, All Might, Tenya's now mostly retired father, Midnight, Vlad King, Snipe, and Endeavor. They all sat, observing Bakugo and Kamakiri destroying bot after bot, counting how many they had destroyed and shooting jabs at each other back and forth, egging the other to work harder out of spite for the other. Asui jumped from roof to roof with a grinning Mineta on her back, throwing balls and making traps which the bots got caught in, burning out their motors, or Asui would slam her tongue from above, pushing them into the traps. Todoroki created long ice slides throughout the streets as Ida slid behind him, causing some robots to slip and smash against the ground, while those that didn't slip were quickly kicked down into scrap by Ida. Monoma sliced through bot after bot, sometimes using explosions he borrowed from Bakugo, or slapping away the bots with Kendo's quirk, as she stood to his back, covering his blind spots and smashing or slapping any bots that came for them as they made their way to the center. As for Midoriya and Yaoyorozu, they were working in surprising cohesion. Midoriya would use javelins that Yaoyorozu made for him, launching volley after volley through the air at the waves of robots with his quirk. And soon, Midoriya figured out an idea as the two reached a brief pause in the bots. Midoriya turned to his partner.
Yaoyorozu, make a rock for me. I have an idea. Nothing big, Just a tiny rock about as big as my fist. I also need you to trust me on this.
She gave him a nod, creating the small rock like he asked, then looked at him quizzically, both wondering the idea he had exactly and what he looked like under that weird 8-eyed helmet. Did he have 8 eyes too? She would find out later. But first, the present. You can call me Momu if you find that easier, and please tell me what your idea is first before I go along with this. Midoriya turned to her as the eyes on his helmet began moving around, and his eyes darted around the surroundings before landing upon a specific building as he lifted the rock with his quirk, chuckling through his voice changer.
Getting us a ride, and use some improved weaponry.
As he finished the sentence, Midoriya threw the rock at seemingly nothing, then a 3-pointer rounded the corner from behind the building, and he hit it smack in what is technically the head. Grabbing the bot's attention, he ran at it and grappled to its back, ripping its back plate off, all using his claw pack. Then, he began ripping out wires and plugging them back into new locations, shutting the bot down before starting it back up into manual control mode. Putting the plate back on, leaving 2 wires poking out, he sat on the robot and patted the back.
Your metallic weaponized carriage awaits. Pull that wire in the direction you want this thing to move, and that one in the direction you want it to shoot.
Smirking at the sheer nonsense of this, and yet it working, Yaoyorozu climbed up onto the bot and took the reins. Off the two went, blasting bots with the 3-pointer's weaponry and Midoriya's telekinesis until the duo met up with the others at the center of the city. Nezu was shaking with excitement as he personally pressed a few buttons directing all remaining bots in the city to encircle and attack their position before slamming his paw down on a red button marked Nezu's button do not touch, unleashing the 0-pointers into the multiple mock cities. Everyone watched eagerly as the bots encircled their position, but were caught off guard by ice walls blocking off every street but 2, leaving the main street as a bottleneck, 5 of them focused on the north, while the other 5 focused on the south. As they shredded through the waves of robotic assailants, there was a massive rumbling through the city from the north and south. The teachers all looked at Nezu with looks of disbelief. Aizawa spoke up. Nezu, tell me you didn't do what we all think you did to their city. Even by my standards, that's a bit much for the entrance exam. And there's only 10 of them. Nezu looked at Aizawa, innocently sipping tea before lowering it and looking back at him with a grin. Then I won't tell you I modified their city to have 2 0-pointers. Besides, you should all have a little more faith. You saw their group cohesion, and we have the sons of 3 heroes in there. The 2 0-pointers towered over the teens, their red eyes glowing menacingly. As they advanced on their position, followed by scores of bots, the 0-pointer to the north smashed through a massive ice wall that Todoroki had made to try and keep it at bay. As the ice crashed down onto Yaoyorozu, Midoriya shouted out orders to his impromptu team.
Bakugo, Kendo, Kamakiri, Todoroki, keep the bots off us and ignore the 0-pointers. Monoma, Asui, Mineta, keep to the rooftops and perform hit-and-run attacks as Mineta lays traps for any more incoming bots. Ida, be ready to get Momo out of there when the ice is off her. Once she's clear, all of you make a run for it.
Midoriya shouted loudly. Bakugo begrudgingly did as he was told, and the others followed suit, making sure they wouldn't have to stop him attacking the 0-pointers, leaving them with 2 teammates to save. But fortunately, common sense won out in the end. Midoriya lifted the ice away from Yaoyorozu as Ida went to grab her and carry her to safety, following the others' retreat, but he turned back and stopped. The others looked at Ida's face of awe, and then shared that same face as they watched what he was looking at. Midoriya flew in the air, laughing with glee as all robots in the area floated up and began to get launched at the southern 0-pointer, eventually causing it to explode from the multiple high-velocity impacts. A giant metal hand reached out to grasp Midoriya from behind, only to grab nothing as he darted out of the way. Midoriya slowly floated towards the 0-pointer's head as a metal claw reached out, touching its head. Then his claw pack buzzed. Immediately, the 0-pointer's head became encased in ice. Slowly, the claw returned to its slot, and a small empty canister shot out of Midoriya's claw pack, hissing. Midoriya then raised his hands and strained as the 0-pointer began to lift off the ground before starting to creak from the pressure, until finally, the giant machine was shredded into hundreds of tiny cubes of compact scrap metal, which Midoriya used to bombard incoming robots that had just arrived, or he missed earlier when using them as ammo against one of the zero-pointers. All but 3 individuals stood in awe of Midoriya's display. The 3 who remained calm and collected in the face of this power were All for One, Nezu, and Midoriya himself. Soon, President Mike announced the exams were over.
No doubt about it. That boy is definitely Inko's son. But I think he beat your record, All Might. I can't even be ashamed that my Shoto didn't score as much as him.
Endeavor looked at the boy with interest, whilst keeping his classic frown. Likely from his son throwing his recommendation in his face and demanding to take the entrance exam to prove he's worthy or something, Endeavor couldn't care less for his childish antics, for he had no time for them.
Nezu, I want him in my class.
Aizawa was cut off by Vlad King, patting his shoulder and shaking his head with a massive grin that just screamed, "Screw you."
Not gonna happen, Shota. You made me teach that kid how to fight in unarmed combat, and I did not put that effort into training him just for you to call dibs. Besides, I already asked Nezu to have this kid join my class when he got in. I asked him to show off his quirk a bit before we trained, so I had a rough guess how strong he was, guessing he was holding back on me.
Aizawa tutted at Vlad and walked towards the door, leaving the room, but after getting a text on his phone, his face seemed to brighten slightly. Meanwhile, All Might stood in the corner of the room, looking at the recording of Midoriya's pack using someone else's quirk. He'd be lying if he said he didn't feel a bit of dread watching the enjoyment as the boy unleashed carnage upon the robotic foes. But what worried him most was he only felt dread like this before when he was face to face with one other man. A man he swore on his mentor's grave he would destroy and make sure he couldn't come back. No prison could contain him forever after all. And that's our video for the day, so thank you all for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed it. Before I go, there's a little bit of housekeeping. First, We the Celestials has many other incredible content for your entertainment and viewing pleasures. All the information you'll need is right below in the description, so please check out all the other content we have. Second, on behalf of We the Celestials, I want to thank everyone who was involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details are also in the description. Please give the writer and the editor some love. They do a lot of hard work here. And that's it for today's video, so thank you all for watching and have an amazing day. And as always, be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, and stay awesome. This has been Tim, Mustache out.